All right, good morning. I want to do a quick check-in. We are entering our 5th week here, and just want to dive into some of these pillars that we've talked about a little bit more. Two of the pillars are aerobic fitness and anaerobic fitness, and this is where a lot of people are going to think just cardio. But what I really want to help you understand is to understand that there's a difference between how we might do or how we might consider cardio. So the two examples I'm going to give you are, let's think of a spectrum here, and they're kind of on opposite ends. The first one is aerobic training, and this means with oxygen. So this is going to be like a jog. This is going to be, for some people, this might just be a brisk walk. And this is a really, really important piece. It's a really foundational piece for overall fitness, cardiovascular health. It's where your body becomes more efficient at burning fat. So if you took like a long distance endurance athlete, a world-class cyclist, a marathoner, they spend most of their time, about 80% of their time, in this zone. So it's low intensity training. It doesn't gas you. And one very easy way, there's a lot of ways you can measure this, just say that. You can use heart rate monitors, you can find your zones, there's some quick calculations just based off of your age. What you can figure out what your max heart rate is. So a very simple calculation for that is take 220, subtract your age. So if you're a 40-year-old male, female, your max heart rate would be somewhere around 180. And then from there, you can figure out this zone 2 is somewhere around 60 to 70% of that max heart rate. That would be your criteria that you would then work off of and trying to keep your heart rate in that zone. A much simpler way to do that is just, can you talk while you are performing the activity? And then do you want to talk? So if you are running quickly and you're out of breath and you can't really complete a full sentence, you're absolutely not in zone 2. If you're going along and you can talk, but you just don't really necessarily feel like it, that's probably a good indication of where you're at. So that is probably the best, simplest baseline test that you don't need any equipment for or any calculations to know this is what zone 2 would feel like. So for a lot of people, this is going to be more easily achieved on something that you can control the pace. A bike, a rowing machine, a treadmill, walking uphill, a weighted ruck. If you do rucking, this would be a good place to get into zone 2. And like I said, this is going to be brisk pace, but it's not going to be super intense. And it's theoretically something you could do for hours and hours and hours, because your body is not pulling carbohydrates for energy. It's pulling from fat, which we have a lot more in our body. Carbohydrates are only going to last at best about an hour and a half before they're depleted and you need to refuel them. So again, thinking of like if you were to run a 5K or 10K, you're probably running at an upper end zone. You wouldn't be able to do that for hours. But a brisk walk where you're hitting that zone 2, most humans could do that for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, and yeah, it wouldn't be comfortable, but you would definitely, your body would not fall apart, and you would be able to keep doing that. So that is zone 2 training, and this is again aerobic training with oxygen. This if you're going to be doing cardio, it's really important that you understand what this looks like, because it's actually less intense than what most people would think, and it's less intense than what most people actually do when they go out and they do cardio. I'm just use that word loosely. And again, this is very important, very foundational for mitochondrial health, for your metabolic health. So there's lots of benefits you get from training this way. So now let's go to the other end of the spectrum. So we're down here in this low intensity spectrum, and now we're going to go up to anaerobic training. So this is without oxygen. This is going to be your high intensity style training, interval training. And the thing about this is that it is very uncomfortable. Okay, so we can just acknowledge that it is not easy. It's not going to feel, you're going to have a lot of resistance around doing it. However, the good thing is that you don't need a lot of this each week. Anywhere, as little as 12 minutes a week can have dramatic improvements in your VO2 max, which is one of the best indicators for health span as well as lifespan. So if you want to hit the other end of the spectrum in your cardiovascular health, you need to get into these high intensity zones just a little bit each week. And that could be, you could do that a couple different ways. You could do that putting 2 or 3 minutes a few times that sprinkled in throughout the week. You could also just have one day dedicated where you, with rest periods, this is very important and we can talk about this more, but with rest periods, you accumulate 12, 15 minutes of this higher intensity work. There's lots of cool protocols out there for this. One's called sugarcane. I won't bore you with all these different details. If you want more information, I'll share it with you. But if you think about this, you're going to want to make sure the principle behind it is giving yourself ample rest so you can do very intense work, 85, 90% of your maximum effort. I wouldn't try for 100. If you just shoot for like 85%, that's going to probably give you the best results. And again, this is going to be uncomfortable. You could start with 60-second intervals followed by maybe, I would probably say like 2 minutes rest. Give yourself longer rest than work periods at first, and then eventually work your way up to where you might be able to do 3 or 4 minutes at a time, and see if you can sustain those paces. So if you did a 3-minute round, you would need to accumulate 4 of those. So maybe you do 3 minutes of work, 3 to 4 minutes of rest, then another 3 minutes of work, and repeat until you've completed 4 rounds, or you can even do 5. And so that might take you 45 minutes, plus a little warm up and things like that, and a cool down, but that's gonna give you that very high intensity pace. And like I said, it is uncomfortable at first, but your body will embrace it after, even usually by the 3rd or 4th round, you'll start to be like, okay, I can do this. So there's what I really want to get to and help you understand today is not necessarily how to do these. We can dive into that more and I can answer any specific questions you have, but know that there are 2 ends of this range. One is like almost really slow, and almost, it requires effort, but it's not very effortful. The other is the exact opposite. It requires a lot of effort, but it's very short periods of time and a lot of rest. And there's a whole lot of space in the middle, and that's actually where most people spend a lot of their cardio time. And that's actually not going to benefit you in either way. So if you were an athlete training for a race, you would probably spend a little bit of time in there. But for most of us, probably 99% of us, we want to be in that lower intensity area, and then we want to get a little bit of time in that upper intensity area. And that's going to train so many of the systems in our body, so we're healthier cardiovascular wise, metabolic wise. But you have to know that there's a difference. And if you just kind of hang out in the middle, you're not training the fat burning side, and you're not training the anaerobic side. So you're just kind of doing this work, and yes, you're burning calories for sure. But if you try to train like that 3 or 4 times a week, all that's actually going to happen is your performance and probably how you feel is just going to go down, because your body, you're just training the wrong way. You're not giving yourself enough rest. You're doing too much work in this kind of middle zone. And that's where a lot of people, I think, when they don't understand this, they just don't get results from training that way. And you just end up overtraining. So those are the other 2 pillars that are very important to understand in this greater picture of how we can understand fitness, the time that we put into our fitness, and just knowing again that there's a difference between the 2. So as you go through this week, I want to just have you think about those and see if you can interject, even just if it's 30 seconds or 60 seconds of something that's higher intensity. Make sure you're warmed up, whatever it is. And there's lots of ways you can do this, but see if you can start to get a little bit comfortable being uncomfortable and pushing into these upper ends of the range. And again, this, like everything else, this can be a nice, smooth, gradual transition. You don't need to go into this at 100 miles an hour, but start just programming a little bit of this time in. Probably the easiest way to do it would be at the end of a workout, end of a session you're already doing, and just crank up the dial to somewhere where you feel uncomfortable. And then see if you can hang out there for a little bit. Take some rest, and then repeat it. Do it again. See if you can get to that place where it's uncomfortable, it's hard, and you're pushing yourself more than you normally would. And then take some rest, and then let that be it. So 1 or 2 rounds, and see if you can start to understand what that feels like. Because you have to just learn what these things actually feel like and know that you can do them. So that's the other 2 pillars. The first one we've talked about is strength. We've talked about stability. And now we're talking about aerobic and anaerobic fitness. So if you have questions, I'm here to help. I could probably talk about this stuff for hours, But hopefully this gives you a good summary of what these are, how to fit them in, especially if you're already doing cardio style training. This is how you're going to get more mileage out of it, how you're going to get more from the work and the time that you're doing. All right, so let's keep moving, and we'll see you guys here soon. Thank you.